What's going on, everybody? This is like my 80th time trying to record this intro, so I'm just going to go slow, tell you what the video's about, and we're going to roll through it either way. My name is Joe. I make videos about K-State. We talk about K-State basketball, football. Whenever an idea pops into my head, I want to make a video about. And today's video is actually recently inspired by some comments from Cam Carter. He was in an interview with KSNT's Glenn Kinley, and Kinley asked him basically like, Cam, what are you excited for the upcoming season? What are you looking forward to? Cam Carter responded and said, we are excited and focused on winning a national championship. We're looking to win a national championship in the upcoming season. Obviously, that's going to be the goal every year, but the comments got me thinking, what does K-State have to do to finish this season off with a national championship? So in today's video, we're going to talk about that. I made a 6-step list of what I think K-State can do, will do, and should do in order to win a national championship in the upcoming season. Before we get into the video here, let me say thank you guys so much for all the support on the channel. It's been awesome getting to interact with you guys and just seeing the new faces and the new friends join the community. It's cool getting to share this with more and more people each and every day, so I appreciate you guys there. We're getting closer to my goal of 1,000 subs each and every day. Once we do cross that threshold, I'm giving away one of these lavender quarter zips, and I'll give you details on how to win that later on once we cross that threshold. But if you want some more K-State content, go ahead and subscribe, as well as check out the description. I've got some more stuff in between videos, like I've got my Twitter linked in there and a couple of different podcasts to check out. But that being said, let's get into the video. Now, it's no secret that K-State doesn't have a national championship yet. I'm getting that out of the way now because I know there's going to be a bunch of jokes about it in comment sections and all this, whatever. I'm not worried about that. That can change. It's also important to note only one team wins the title every year. It's not an easy thing to do, and I'm not trying to point fingers or anything at anybody in that, but I wanted to give my thoughts on why this K-State team could, what needs to happen, and what's going to happen next. So the two prerequisites I have for this, and before I harp on these won't apply to everybody. This won't be an all-team thing. You have to have these. You know, you see teams like UConn with Kemba Walker where it's just they had the best player in the world for a 2-week period. They won a national championship. That's possible. That's fine and dandy. But this feels like a good benchmark, a good work ethic spot for K-State to go from to build off of. So the two prerequisites I have a good coaching staff and have a good fan base. Now, a good fan base, obviously it's subjective to an extent, but have a passionate fan base. Turn your home court into an advantage. I mean, don't just let it be someplace you play on the road and then you go back home. K-State only lost one game in Manhattan this last season. A huge part of that is from the fans. And when you have people affecting the court, affecting what's happening on the court from the stands, that's a massive thing in your corner for sure. And when you ask the players, you hear them say that. You hear them say the fans are incredible. We play in front of the best fans in the world. That's important to have. I'm not going to hammer on the staff because we all know how good the staff is. We know Jerome Tang and his coaching staff are incredible, so I don't need to waste any time talking about them because we do have one of the best staffs in the country. I 100% agree with that. Step one, and I've talked about it on the channel a couple of times, I think you need 3 NBA bodies, 3 NBA dudes on the court for your team at one time. You saw that with UConn this year. You saw that with Kansas in the past, Baylor in the past. Some of these teams that have, big successful runs in March, they've got NBA dudes. And I don't just mean guys that will be drafted to the NBA. There is a fine line between NBA dudes and a really good collegiate athlete. There is a fine line. The dudes that look better, faster, stronger, more agile, the dudes that stand out in college basketball. And you can see that. You see that in high school basketball. You see, oh, this guy looks really good. Then the player goes to college, they play college competition, and they're not as good. They kind of fade a little bit. High school players do that. College players do that. Even before that, obviously. NBA players do that as well. There are some of the best athletes in the world at every step of the way. You need 3 dudes who stand out on a college basketball Division I level. Last season, I've talked about it a little bit, it felt like K-State had 2.5. We had really great players, and I don't mean to take shots at anybody. I'll explain my logic here in a minute. Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel were our 2 certified dudes for sure. I think half of nae'qwan Tomlin counts just because he didn't have a ton of experience. And I know that Keontae Johnson was a first-year transfer. He didn't have the same experience, but Keontae had been in that spot a lot more. nae'qwan Tomlin was a little bit more of an unknown prospect. He hadn't been thrown into that role or even really been asked to be that guy on a nightly basis. This season, he's an NBA dude. I mean, he is one that is unbelievably athletic. He's bigger, faster, stronger than everybody. And I think if K-State wants to have a run this year, they're going to need him to be first team All Big 12. And I think that's pretty possible for Tomlin. I think he's very easily could do that. The second dude on our court, we've got Arthur Kaluma. Arthur Kaluma is an NBA draft process guy as a sophomore. Going into his junior year with K-State, he's another one that jumps off the tape. Athletic, fast, strong. Finishing ability is insane. The guy can do everything on the court you ask him to. He's an NBA dude. Now, at the moment in time, and I've mentioned some spots in here where we can still work on the portal, I think we're still in that 2.5 range, not because that the guys we know aren't good enough, but because we don't quite know what we have yet. You don't 100% know what you have with Tyler Perry. He is going to be incredible. Don't get me wrong. But is he going to be the difference between a top collegiate player and an NBA dude? I don't know just because I haven't watched him at K-State, but if you watch his highlights, signs point to yes. They would say, yes, Tyler Perry is going to be our third dude no matter what. There's a lot of guys on the court that I could talk about right now and say, this guy could be great, this guy could be great. Cam Carter, there's a lot of freshmen coming in. It's just one where I don't know what we have yet. We'll have to see. So that's why I say we could recruit another guy, still land a dude or two in the portal, so I'm not going to rule that out by any means. Right now, we at least have 2 guaranteed dudes. Step 2, and this is one of the most important things, and I don't know if I ordered these in terms of most important to least important, but either way, they're 1 through 6. Step 2, experienced guards who can facilitate. Now, it is so important to have a guy who can run the offense. You need an engine in every car. You need something to get the engine moving. Tyler Perry's the conductor. He's the guy. Cam Carter is a conductor. You have guys that are experienced, and like the veteran guard thing is subjective. Obviously, you want guys that have played a lot of games. Cam Carter was one of the most mature players for his age after last season. Like, being a sophomore, being a young guy in that offense, like, he's now turning into one of the better players in the Big 12, and I can't wait to see him this season. He's got experience under his belt. He's ready to make that next step. Tyler Perry, Cam Carter, these 2 dudes can absolutely facilitate. The only thing is, I mean, you really want 3 of these guys. Obviously, you'd want a million of these guys, but you want a third guy that can comfortably run the offense and perform things, because there are foul trouble games. There are games where someone gets injured. There's moments when you can't just rely on 2 players. You need another guy off the bench that can jump in and at least fill the spot on a nightly basis if need be. So I would love a third experienced guard, and I know that there's guys like Dorian Finister, there's guys that could step in, some of the freshmen as well, but having another experienced guard is something Jerome Tang's talked about. And I think we're still going to land one before the portal closes. We've got 2 scholarship spots open, so we'll talk about that going forward. But step 3, you need shot makers. And I'm not just talking about guys who can shoot. That's obviously helpful and it's great, but guys who can go get a bucket when you need one. Immediately, Tyler Perry was one of the most clutch finishers, clutch scorers in the entire country last season. I don't know the exact stat, but I know he's one of the more clutch players. He had more points than everybody in the last 2 minutes of a game in between both halftime and end of regulation. Tyler Perry is a certified shot getter. That guy can go. I think Cam Carter falls into that conversation as well. I would still like to see his 3-point shooting improve a little bit, but I think that's going to happen just with more experience and more time on the court. I think there is guys like Data Ames who could become shot makers, but at the moment, I just don't know what we have there. So recruiting in the portal might be helpful for another shot maker. I think both Tyler Perry, Cam Carter, guys like that can fit in that conversation, but I need to see what we have from the freshmen, and if we recruit in the transfer portal, this could go hand in hand with the facilitator spot. You get a facilitating guard who's able to shoot. Obviously, it's a big ask sometimes this late in the portal, but I think it's definitely possible that we get a third guy in there to help out with that. Step 4, and this one, I hadn't harked on this one very often in the past. This is a big deal, and I noticed it last year. You absolutely need a lockdown defender. And I don't mean to say a guy that's just not going to let anybody score. You need a guy who's okay with saying, you know what, I'm not scoring tonight, I'm locking it in, I'm shutting this guy across from me down. You need someone that's going to defend a top guard or a big forward. We had that with Desi Sills last season. Desi could go off and score 25 if he needed to, and there were times when he did. Obviously, the Kansas game, he went crazy, but there's also times when he just goes ballistic on the defensive side of things. I mean, he had 4 blocks against TCU, and I know we lost that game in the Big 12 tournament, but having a clutch defender is massive. And immediately, there's a guy that screams to the front of my mind. There's actually 2, but the one I feel really confident about, Dorian Finister. And hear me out on this. Finister is a sophomore guard. We'll see what happens with his eligibility. I know they applied for a redshirt last season late. He is 6'5" at the guard position. If you've watched any of his high school highlights, this guy is a walking bucket. He's an athletic specimen. He strikes me as a combo guy that can both guard smaller size forwards and also bigger guards and even just anybody on the court. Obviously you're not going to match him up with a center or anything like that, but you want a guy who's going to be capable to shut down their best scorer. The Montana State game, nae'qwan battle comes to mind. You need someone that's going to go toe-to-toe with that guy and not worry about the offensive end as much because you've got other dudes that can do that, but is somebody going to step up and answer the challenge defensively? My brain tells me that's Dorian Finister. I think he's going to be a really great player this season. The other one that comes to mind, Taj Manning. I haven't seen him play much. I know he's really athletic and he can play well, but I don't quite know enough about his endurance or his agility, so we'll see how he handles that, but he could be a lockdown guy as well. Step 5, and this one's kind of an up-in-the-air one for us right now. Strength in the low post. Now, you don't need someone who's 7'2", 260 in the low post. However, having that is really nice. We have one center on the roster, and it's someone that I'm a big fan of, Jarrell Colbert. He's listed at 6'10", I believe, and he's 235 right now. He's a big dude. When he got to K-State, he was around 195, 200 pounds. He's bulked up, and I think he's going to be our starting 5 when the season does start. You got some of that with David Gasson last season, but it also felt like, he's a forward that we're kind of forcing into a different role, which we'll see what happens. I mean, David Gasson is incredibly capable, regardless of where he goes. He's one to watch for sure. Another guy I have to mention on this, Caleb Rich. He's not 6'10", he's not 6'11", he's not going to dominate you height-wise. However, the dude's got a ridiculous vertical, and hear me out on his size. Incoming freshman, right? He's a forward, 6'7", okay, 250 pounds. The dude is built like Hercules. The guy's ready to go. I think he's going to have the quickest jump to college basketball out of all the freshmen. Even though Dada Ames looks incredible, some of those videos, RJ Jones looks good, I think Michaela Rich one-on-one is going to be nearly impossible to stop. There's a million different things I could say to finish this off, but step 6, it is so important to have reserves and a deep bench. Like, fouls happen on a nightly basis. Nae'Qwan Tomlin had some of the most fouls on our entire team last season. He can't have that happen this season. He needs to be on the court more. He averaged 27 minutes, which is still a good chunk of time, but you had both Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel getting 34, 35 minutes a night. And I know that's a lot to ask, especially for a bigger dude, but like, he more than likely, now that he's playing more in his natural position rather than forced to 5 at times, I think that'll work itself out. But having guys on the bench that can come in and help, which is why I'm so excited for guys like RJ Jones. I think David Gason's going to come in. I don't know if he'll be the starter or come off the bench with Colbert, but I think that rotation is going to be really nice. Then you get Taj Manning, who he's kind of the quiet guy. We don't know what he's going to do this season. I think he could either be a great player or just, learn the ropes. We're not asking the world of our incoming freshmen or, our redshirt guys like Manning, but there's players that could really step up big. I think Dorian Finister is another one that comes to mind. There's guys that can jump off the tape here for K-State. We just don't know what we have yet. We've got 2 open spots remaining on this roster. We're already an NCAA tournament team. Jerome Tang said that. He feels very confident in that, and I don't doubt that whatsoever. You could roll with this lineup and win a lot of games in the Big 12. But you've got 2 more spots. And I know there's a recent episode on the Life of Fitz podcast. Shout out Tim Fitzgerald. He's an incredible guy. If you're not listening to that podcast, you should be. He had Coach Tang on that podcast this morning. It's a great episode. You should go give it a listen. And he asked about the 2 open spots, saying, hey, are you going to, some coaches roll with that, leaving it open for the season, the 13th spot. Are your plans to fill that? Are you going to leave it open, see what happens? He's like, we're going to fill it with 2 dudes, no matter what. And maybe that's just blind optimism, but I feel like Coach Tang has an idea of who he wants to add. He mentioned another veteran guard, a guy that can come in who's played a lot of games and contribute. That fits into that spot of a shot creator and an experienced guard to facilitate. And he mentioned, more than likely it'll just be the next best available player, whether that's a guard or a guy at the low post or a forward. We'll see what happens. I feel pretty confident about our forward position, but if you give me 2 picks, give me a guy who can knock down shots as a 2-guard spot, someone to come off the bench and still help out with that, and then give me a big guy down low. I mean, get, David Milwaukee's a guy I talked about in a couple of videos ago. Didn't necessarily light up the stat sheet or anything, but get a guy that can really develop and put some good minutes on tape. I think K-State's got a good chance to really compete. And if these 6 things can happen, if we can improve in a couple of different spots, we've got the right guys in the locker room already, I think K-State has a real shot at a national championship. And I know that immediately it's tough to say because there's a lot of things that go into it. There's a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of skill involved. But K-State has a chance to win a lot of games, get to the tournament, and then make a run. This is a lineup I like a lot, and I'm excited to see what happens next. But thank you guys so much for watching in today's video. And I know it's a little bit, it's a little different. It's more of just a monologue of me thinking about it, but I really appreciate you guys sitting here and listening. Once again, if you did enjoy the content, go ahead and consider subscribing. It helps us out a lot. And I really appreciate you guys sharing the video on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, whatever you can. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Go Cats.